Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So today we're reading from Bhagavad-Gita as it is, chapter number 15, entitled The Yoga of the Supreme Person, and text number 20 we're repeating again. Iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga etad buddha buddhiman syat krita krityascha bharata iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga etad buddha buddhiman syat kritya krityascha bharata iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga etat buddha buddhiman syat krita krityascha bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga eta buddhvad buddhiman syat kritya krityascha bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga eta buddha buddhiman syat kritya krityascha bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga etat buddha buddhiman syat kritya krityascha bharata. Iti guhyatamam shastram idam uktam mayanaga etat buddha buddhiman syat krita krityascha bharata. Iti, thus, guhya tamam, the most confidential, shastram, revealed scripture, idam, this, uktam, disclosed, maya, by me, anaga, O sinless one, etat, this, buddha, understanding, buddhiman, intelligent, syat, one becomes, krita krityaha, the most perfect in his endeavors, cha, and Bharata, O son of Bharata. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Please repeat. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Purport. The Lord clearly explains here that this is the substance of all revealed scriptures, and one should understand this as it is given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Thus one will become intelligent and perfect in transcendental knowledge. In other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in his transcendental service, everyone can become freed from all contaminations of the modes of material nature. Devotional service is a process of spiritual understanding. Wherever devotional service exists, the material contamination cannot coexist. Devotional service to the Lord and the Lord himself are one and the same because they are spiritual. Devotional service takes place within the internal energy of the Supreme Lord. The Lord is said to be the sun, and ignorance is called darkness. Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Therefore, whenever devotional service is present under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance. Everyone must take to this consciousness of Krishna and engage in devotional service to become intelligent and purified. Unless one comes to this position of understanding Krishna and engages in devotional service, however intelligent he may be in the estimation of some common man, he is not perfectly intelligent. The word anaga, by which Arjuna is addressed, is significant. Anaga, O sinless one, means that unless one is free from all sinful reactions, it is very difficult to understand Krishna. One has to become free from all contamination, all sinful activities, then he can understand. But devotional service is so pure and potent that once one is engaged in devotional service, he automatically comes to the stage of sinlessness. While one is performing devotional service in association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of the heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. Thus one gives up the transcendental loving services of the Supreme Lord. The second weakness of the heart is that as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problems of material existence are due to these weaknesses of the heart. In this chapter, the first 5 verses describe the process of freeing oneself from these weaknesses of the heart, and the rest of the chapter, from the 6th verse to the end, discusses Purushottama Yoga. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purports to the 15th chapter of the Srimad Bhagavad-Gita in the matter of Purushottama Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandayaham Sri Guruho Sri Yuta Parakamalam Sri Guruna Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrijatam Sahagana Raghunatan Vitam Tom Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Purijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Visakan Vitamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namustate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti-Vedanta Swaminiti Namane. Namo Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimati Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesa Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarane Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta-Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay. Iti guyatamam shastram, idam uktam hayanaga, etat budva buddhiman syat, krityas bharata. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is now disclosed by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. So, Burijan in his commentary says that this verse number 20 is the summary of the 15th chapter. And certainly Srila Prabhupada's purport is the summary of the 15th chapter. And there are also some significant words in the verse itself that come up more than once in the Bhagavad-Gita. I didn't do a lot of preparation for today's class, but we'll try and approach some of these things. So essentially, the chapter is called Purushottam Yoga, the yoga of the Supreme Person. And Prabhupada quite succinctly summarizes what it means to be yoga of the Supreme Person. In the beginning, he says, in other words, by understanding this philosophy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and engaging in his transcendental service, everyone can become freed from the contamination of the modes of material nature. So this yoga of the Supreme Person, we have to know him. So by understanding this philosophy, and then by engaging in his transcendental service, because yoga means to connect with, yoga yukta. In the last paragraph, Srila Prabhupada explains, he breaks up the chapter quite simply. He says in the first 5 verses, describe the process of freeing oneself from these weaknesses of the heart, and the rest of the chapter discussed Purushottam Yoga. I think first we'll just take some of these words in the verse itself. The first one is guyatamam. So throughout the Bhagavad-Gita, Krishna talks about this confidential knowledge. Confidential knowledge is guyata. And then guyataha is more confidential, and guyatamam is most confidential. So this understanding is the most confidential. Now, it was mentioned in class a few days back that Prabhupada is distributing this Bhagavad-Gita freely on the streets all over the world. So how come what's in it is the most confidential? And the answer is given that it's the most confidential because even though the knowledge is freely available and freely given, people don't understand it until they come to this anaga, until this point of getting rid of the sinful reactions. So this word anaga comes up several times in the Bhagavad-Gita. You need to turn the volume up. It's close to my mouth. The volume is a little low. Just, turn it up a little bit. Hare Krishna. Yeah. If you turn up the one on the left that goes to this microphone, just turn it up a little bit. Yeah, that should be enough, right? That's okay. That's good. Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, so this word anaga, another verse where anaga comes up, my anaga, the same word, Sri Bhagavan Uvacha. No, it can't be too far away, otherwise no, just there, that's okay. Lokesmin dvivida nishta, Pura prokta mayanaga, Jnana yogena sankyanam, Karma yogena yogina. So here Krishna's again calling Arjuna Mayanaga, O sinless one. O sinless Arjuna, I have already explained that there are two classes of men who try to realize the self. And another one comes up in verse 6 of which verse? Oh, this is the 14th chapter, verse 6, which talks about the different modes of nature. So we can talk about this a little bit. It says, Tatra sattvam nirmalatvat prakashakam anamayam sukha sangena bahadnati jnana sangena chanaga. O sinless one, the mode of goodness, being purer than the others, is illuminating, and it frees one from all sinful reactions. Those situated in that mode become conditioned by a sense of happiness and knowledge. So this is a way to become anaga. This is a way to become sinless. Srila Prabhupada also uses a verse in the 2nd chapter which describes the fall down sequence. I can find it. Apologies for not being properly prepared. Oh, it's before that. Here it is. So in in 262, which describes the fall down sequence when one falls into the material world, Krishna says, Dhyayata Vishayan Pumsa Sangas Teshu Bhajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kama Kama Krodat Bijayate. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from attachment lust develops, and from lust anger arises. So this third line, Sangat Sanjayate Kama, is saying that from the association. So our association with the modes are what gets us into trouble. Another verse is there in the 17th chapter, which also talks about association. In the beginning of the 17th. Now, I just can't find that, but it is also says something similar. It says that by our association with the modes of nature, that's how we become entangled. So, to become anaga, to become sinless, we want to approach the mode of goodness. And of course, we can't simply automatically approach the mode of goodness. We have to associate with that mode, because we're born into a particular body according to our previous desires and our previous actions. And that body is consisted of the three modes of nature. So it's mixed. None of us are purely in goodness, none of us are purely in passion, none of us are purely in ignorance. But we can approach the mode of goodness by associating with the mode of goodness. And one of those things is to sit in this class today. This is also the mode of goodness, because we're quietly and calmly sitting and hearing. Another word that I wanted to pick out from this verse itself was this intelligent, buddha, buddhiman. So buddhiman, in word for word, Prabhupada calls it intelligence, and in the translation he calls it wise. Now, there are some significant places where the wise are praised by Lord Krishna as well. In the 7th chapter, Krishna talks about the different types of people who come to him. Chatur vidha bhajante mam jana sukrishnto arjuna arto jigyasu artarti Jnani cha Bharatarshaba. O best amongst the Bharatas, 4 kinds of pious men begin to render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desire of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge of the Absolute. So in the following verse, Krishna says, Tesham jnani nicha yukta eka bhaktir visishyate priyo hi jnanino tyartam aham sa cha mama priyaha. Of those, the one who is in full knowledge and who is always engaged in pure devotional service is the best. For I am very dear to him and he is dear to me. So here Krishna is talking about the wise. Of the 4 types of people who come to him, we have the distressed, the arta, the distressed, the artarti, the ones who are in search of material gain, the jigyasu, the inquisitive, and the jnani, the one who is wise, the one who knows things. So Krishna is saying, of these 4, the one who is dear to me is the one who is wise. And he also describes the qualities of this one who is wise. One who is in full knowledge and always engaged in devotional service is the best. So wisdom is not just knowledge alone. Krishna is stressing very much, as this 15th chapter is stressing, that actually proper knowledge means we engage in devotional service. And he says, I am very dear to he is for I am very dear to him and he is very dear to me. Again in the 9th chapter, Krishna talks about the wise as well. Mahatmanas tumam parta devim prakritim ashritaha bhajanchanana manaso gyatva bhutadim avyayam. O son of Pritha, those who are not deluded, the great souls, are under the protection of the divine nature. They are fully engaged in devotional service because they know me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, original and inexhaustible. So here Krishna is saying the same thing again. Because these people are Mahatmas, because they know him as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and therefore they fully engage in devotional service. And the same again in the 10th chapter, in 10.8. Aham sarvasya prabhavo mata sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So Krishna has said several times before what he's saying in today's verse. He's saying that we have to know perfectly Krishna. We have to know Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as original and inexhaustible. And the result of that knowledge is we will engage in devotional service, fully engage, worship him with all our hearts. So this is the purpose of this 15th chapter. Now Prabhupada is saying, breaking up the 15th chapter, how the first 5 verses describe how to get rid of the weaknesses of the heart. So I'll just read this last paragraph again, and then we can go through and look at how this works. While one is performing devotional service in the association of pure devotees in full Krishna consciousness, there are certain things which require to be vanquished altogether. Now, you'll notice in various places that Krishna and Prabhupada will explain that if you take up devotional service, then we will naturally acquire all the good qualities of the demigods. But at the same time, Krishna and Srila Prabhupada are giving us some things to do which will help us get rid of these things and acquire these good qualities. The most important thing one has to surmount is weakness of the heart. The first fall down is caused by the desire to lord it over material nature. So when we go back to the beginning of the chapter, we'll find how it's so very carefully explained, a beautiful analogy of how entangling material nature is. So it's hoped by this knowledge will bring us to the point of detachment, which will help us get out of this propensity, this desire to lord it over material nature. Thus one gives up the transcendental loving service of the Supreme Lord. The second weakness of the heart is that as one increases the propensity to lord it over material nature, he becomes attached to matter and the possession of matter. The problems of material existences are due to the weaknesses of the heart. So if we just go back to this beginning of the chapter. I know Prabhupada did that quite thoroughly yesterday, so I'll just do it a little briefly. So Krishna starts with this analogy. It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that has its roots upwards and its branches down, whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas. So we notice here that the Vedic hymns are the leaves of the tree. So the Vedic hymns by themselves are not freeing us. In fact, Krishna says in 1153, Naham Vedar na tapasa na danena na chejaya sakya evam vidodrashtam drashtavan asimam yata. The form you are seeing with your transcendental eyes cannot be understood simply by studying the Vedas, nor by undergoing serious penances, nor by charity, nor by worship. It is not by these means that one can understand me as I am. So the leaves of this tree are the Vedic hymns. The Vedic hymns themselves are not going to free us. We have to do more than that. The following verse 1154 explains, Bhaktya tvananyaya sakya aham eva vido arjuna gyatam drashtam tatvena praveshtam cha parantapa. My dear Arjuna, only by undivided devotional service can I be understood as I am, standing before you, and thus be seen directly. In this way you can enter into the mysteries of my understanding. So, to know this tree, we have to know everything about this material world. Krishna says that the tree is upside down with the root upward. Prabhupada explains that this root upward starts from Brahmaloka, and that the tree is actually a reflection of the spiritual world. The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourishing the tree is nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the objects of the senses. The tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruit of actions in human society. So this tree of the material nature is nourished by the three modes of nature. So unless we understand how to detach ourselves from these three modes of nature and from attachments to these three modes of nature, we can't possibly get out of the tree. The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must seek that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to that Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial. So the weapon of detachment is required, but the weapon of detachment goes hand in hand with knowledge. 1, 2. So in Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, second chapter, 7th verse, Vasudeve Bhagavati bhakti-yoga prayojitaha janayatya suvairagyam jnanam cha yadahaitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, one immediately acquires causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So we keep coming back to this process of devotional service as the best way to get this detachment. But it comes with knowledge, with understanding. It doesn't come by itself. And verse 5 of this chapter explains some qualities that will help us. Nirmama moha jita sanga dosha adhyatma nicha vinivritta kama dvanver vimukta sukha dukkha sangya gacchantya muddha paramavyayam tat. Those who are freed from false prestige, illusion and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are freed from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to that eternal kingdom. So these qualities we are endeavoring to develop. In some ways they come with devotional service. So side by side we're cultivating devotional service, and we're trying to give up these bad qualities and acquire some good qualities. So in Manasiksha, Raghunath Das Goswami explains how even in devotional service we can become caught by various anarthas that will stop us from attaining the perfect stage. So he explains in various levels. he summarizes it by saying we must give up all pride. But then he breaks it down into different levels. How in the beginning we have to give up lust. We have to give up worldly talks. Worldly talks, Raghunath Das Goswami describes as being the grossest level of engaging in practices that will destroy our devotional service, because that drags us straight into the modes of nature. So Raghunath Das Goswami explains worldly talks as being like a prostitute who is stealing the bhav from our heart, who is stealing our devotional service from us. Because we understand, even when we're trying to chant japa, sometimes our mind gets distracted by worldly things, by things we think we have to do, by things we think we have to remember. And it's actually stealing our relationship with Krishna. Because while we might be chanting in our mind somewhere else, we're not in relationship with Krishna. So Raghunath Das Goswami says this is the grossest level, and he likens it to a prostitute. Then he also says that desires for sense enjoyment and desires for liberation are like witches. And impersonalism is like a tigress who is trying to steal us away and distract us. Because we come on the path of devotional service, often our motivation is like these 4 people who are coming to Krishna. We want to get rid of some material problems. So wanting to become free from that is a desire for liberation. Will also keep us from devotional service. So beyond that, we come to the desire for fame, the desire to be acknowledged. So even in devotional service, it can be a problem. Raghunath Das Goswami goes through several different levels of how different types of devotees get caught up in this desire for fame, and how this is destroying them, how they can become attached to different types of material objects in the name of devotional service. Like if someone goes out preaching to try and distribute love of Godhead, but instead becomes attracted to rich people because they give more money in donations, then that's falling down. We're no longer preaching for the sake of preaching, but we're preaching to get the good donation. And so similarly, the renounced person who gets a good name from being a great guru, he may also fall into that trap of finding people who will adore him rather than going out and preaching. So in that way, Raghunath Das Goswami describes these different anarthas. So in this process of coming to spontaneous loving devotional service, we have to give up these anarthas. As Prabhupada is saying in the purport today, they don't go together. He said, yeah. The Lord is said to be the sun. Ignorance is called darkness. Where the sun is present, there is no question of darkness. Therefore, whenever devotional service is present, under the proper guidance of a bona fide spiritual master, there is no question of ignorance. So these two things don't go together. We can't hold on to the material attachments. We can't hold on to a little bit of name and fame and still become pure in devotional service and become as fixed in devotional service as we need to be for our endeavors to know perfection. So now Prabhupada is saying that the rest of the chapter is about Purushottam Yoga. So you'll notice that the rest of the chapter, from text 6 onwards, talks about us also. It talks about Krishna and his position. Prabhupada says that we should become captivated by this knowledge of the Supreme Person. Krishna says, Na tad basayate suryo, na shashanko na pavakaha, yat gadvana nivartanti, tad dhamma paramamama. That supreme abode of mine is not illuminated by sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to this material world. So in this purport, Prabhupada says, one should be captivated by this information. One should desire to transfer himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this false reflection of reality. So this desire must be there. We must know that the spiritual world is there, that Krishna is there. We must learn about his qualities, and we must desire to go there. And Krishna goes back to describing how we become entangled in this material world. Mamaivam sajiva loke jiva bhuta sanatana mana shashtan indriyani prakriti stani karshati. The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. So Krishna is claiming us as his. But at the same time, he's saying that we're caught up in this material world. We have to become free from it. We're struggling very hard. And he's giving the hint of our problem. He says, Mana Shashtan Indriyani. He's saying that the six senses, including the mind, are the things that are catching us. So it gives us that hint that we have to put some effort into subduing the mind by this knowledge, by the process of detachment, and by engaging in devotional service. And then Krishna explains how we become entangled, how the subtle body carries these aromas to the new body, how our desires and our activities form the new body, and how one must become wise. One must understand this before he can actually get out of this problem. Endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly, but those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try to. So this transcendental knowledge, Krishna is very much stressing, we must have this knowledge so that we know how we're entangled and we know where we want to go. We want to go to this spiritual world. And then he also explains more about our relationship with him, how we are completely dependent on him even in the material world. The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of the whole world, comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of the fire. Each planet stays in orbit. The vegetables get their juice from the moon. He provides the fire of digestion. And he provides knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. So in these ways, we are completely dependent on Krishna. And knowing this will help us establish our relationship with him. We begin to know what our relationship is. So chapter 4 also stressed the transcendental knowledge. I spoke about that in my last class last week, how this transcendental knowledge is absolutely required. And this transcendental knowledge we achieve by taking shelter of a self-realized soul. Tadvidi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya upadekshanti te jnanam jnaninas tadvadarshana. Try and learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized soul can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. So approaching the spiritual master and rendering service unto him. Having obtained real knowledge from a self-realized soul, you will never again fall into such illusion, for by this knowledge you will see that all living beings are but part of the Supreme, or in other words, that they are mine. So the same thing is repeated here again in the 15th chapter, that we are part and parcel of Krishna. Mamai vamsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. So this transcendental knowledge is again stressed. And then in this chapter, the following three verses, 16 and 17 and 18, are called the summary of the Vedas. Prabhupada calls it the summary of the contents of the Vedanta Sutra. So verse 16, there are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is infallible. So this is the Baddha Jiva and the Nitya Jiva. And then besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered to the three worlds and is maintaining him. So we've got the Jiva, and then we come on to the Supreme Person in his position as Kshirodakshayi Vishnu. And then in the 18th verse, Yasmat ksharomatito ham akshara-rapichotama atosmi lokavedaicha pratita purushottama. Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and the Vedas as the Supreme Person. So the previous verse, Krishna talked about how he's maintaining the world as Kshirodakshayi Vishnu, and now he's claiming himself, I am that Supreme Person. I am actually the source of everyone. And then whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without doubting, is the knower of everything. Therefore he engages himself in full devotional service unto me. So this knowledge of Krishna is so important. So I think now we can have some discussion. Anybody has something to add, something to correct? Hare Krishna Prabhu, there's a microphone just back there. Yeah. Just flip.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
I want to make a point. The Bhagavad-Gita is a universal scripture in that, on the one hand, Lord Krishna refers to the word anagha. That means the sinless one.
Yes.
And Bhagavad-Gita is both for the sinless as well as the most sinner.
Yes.
Most sinful person. Because on the one hand, Lord Krishna refers to anagha, saying that the teachings of the Gita can be received properly by one who is sinless. But in another sloka he says, Abhichet suduracharo bhajate mamanunabha sadhureva samantabhyah sambyak pravasito hisa kshipram bhavati dharmatma sasvat santim nigacchati kunteya pratijamihi namne bhakta pranasyati. So here Lord Krishna promises that even one is sudura, not simply durachari. Durachari means sinner. He is the most sinful one, says. Abhichet sudurachara. So the teachings of the Bhagavad-Gita are both for the sinner as well as the sinless.
Yes, but in this verse though, he's talking about one who engages fully in devotional service, yes. Not that just he remains sinful.
As his past, just as the sinner as his future.
Yeah, the sin can be committed, but one must be maintaining oneself fully in devotional service. And that is that verse in particular is about a devotee who falls down.
It's open for everyone.
It's not actually about a material sinful person in that verse. Of course, the whole Bhagavad-Gita is for the sinful, but it's giving us the process of purification. But this verse in the 9th chapter you're quoting is actually about devotees who by mistake fall into sinful activities. And but as long as they maintain their full engagement in devotional service, then they're protected. They will not fall down. Yes. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Just like we are in this material world, in material world we are bound to be in the mode of ignorance and passion. So coming out from there in the goodness, we need association. So when we getting association of devotees, whether pure devotees or devotee, when we communicate within ourselves, always speaking about Krishna, talking about Krishna, we don't talk mundane things. But sometimes someone comes and talks something mundane things, and sometimes they give disturbance. So this type of disturbance at that time, what we should do?
Well, it's a fact. As devotees, we want to associate on a transcendental level. We want to associate and talk about Krishna and talk about devotional service. But sometimes we get pulled into mundane things. Somebody mentions something and even we get pulled in as well. But what I think is, on a practical level, one thing we can do is we can develop ways of communicating that will bring the conversation back to Krishna without trying not to offend people. Because actually when you look at the devotees around us, we're all trying to become devotees. It's not that one person is deliberately trying to pull us down. It's just by accident the conversation turns to mundane things. So we need to cultivate ourselves ways of turning a conversation around to bring it back to Krishna in a polite way. Understanding that if we actually come to this point of being undisturbed, then we can take it a little more gently. We don't have to react so enthusiastically. When we're worried very much because we're going to fall down, we react sometimes overzealously, and we say, no, don't talk to me about that. We run away. But as we become a little more mature and a little more tolerant, then we can also use it to try and help this person who has brought the conversation down to a mundane level. We can try and guide them back to the spiritual level. We can use our maturity to try and help others. In that way, our association can be the best benefit, because not only we're taking good association, but we're trying to give association to others. So it takes some thought. When someone comes to criticize others, we can run away, which is the ultimate solution if they won't stop. But we can also try and redirect the conversation and gently say, well, no, I don't want to hear that. Let's, or find some good qualities. If someone comes to start to criticize others, even ask them to find a good quality. There was a story from Prabhupada. There was a couple of stories. One story I remember. One devotee came to Prabhupada and was complaining about another devotee. And he says, Prabhupada, this devotee, he's so terrible. He does this, he doesn't do that. He does everything wrong. He won't give me any peace. He keeps doing that, he keeps doing this, and he keeps doing this. And Prabhupada said, just tolerate him. But then the devotee still wasn't satisfied, so he could, but Prabhupada, I just can't tolerate him. He does all of this, and he does this, and he does that. And I can't tolerate him. Prabhupada said, just tolerate him. And the devotee says, no, but Prabhupada, I just can't tolerate. Prabhupada said, tolerate him the way I'm tolerating you. And another one, I don't remember where I heard this other one, but another one, somebody was criticizing and finding fault after fault and after fault and after fault. And Prabhupada says, well, does he do anything right? Find some good quality. So if a conversation starts to degrade, you ask for some good quality instead. Start to speak about some good quality or something else and try and guide the conversation in a better direction. And in that way we can give our association to others as well. If we can do it, it's good for us and good for them. Because Krishna says at the end of the Bhagavad-Gita, for one who explains this supreme secret to my devotees, he is most dear to me. So Krishna wants us to help each other. Not just to go out and preach to others, but he wants us to help each other. And it's the false ego that makes us think that we're good. We sometimes make mistakes, but we're good. And other people, they've got bad intentions. But actually, the truth is that generally everybody's got good intentions. And sometimes all of us, including ourselves, we slip away from our good intentions. Like that.
I have one point also. Recently somebody was glorifying someone, I'm very careful glorifying, then he was criticizing someone. So I told him, why not? He said, this is the fact I'm telling you. Don't tell the facts which is blessing the devotees we shouldn't do those things. If I know the fact about you, and if I go and tell everybody that this is the fact, this is the person doing this thing, that means I am blessing the devotees. So that thing we shouldn't do.
No, we shouldn't.
If it's not good, you don't think about any, leaving aside what is good, you take good things. Don't think the bad things.
Yeah, there's one story from Bhakti-Siddhanta. It's something that Bhakti-Siddhanta says, correcting devotees is my job. Why would you want to do it? I have to do it. He was virtually saying, I don't want to do it, but I have to correct the devotees. But why would you want to do it? Why would you want to blaspheme the devotees if you don't have to? So we have to remember that. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Any other comments, questions, statements? Okay. Thank you very much, everybody. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.